the Terumot. The fourth chapter, which is the second lesson of today, everybody heard the term shlichus. The moisod of shlichus, everybody in our generation is a shliach. Many of us were zoiche to do it full-time, part-time. But the concept of shlichus and the mokoir of shlichus, one of the mokoiris of shlichus, is in Terumot, because it says, "Kein torimu gam atem terumas Hashem." Since it says the word gam atem could have been written, you should just bring the Terumot. Since it says also you, so the word also is a reference that another person as well can be a shliach. However, in order to be a shliach, which is an extension of you or an extension of your activity or extension of some of the delegation, he must possess similar, identical qualities of the Meshaleach. For that reason, 5 people cannot be functioning as shluchim. First of all, a non-Jew, since he is not betoiras Terumot, he has no chiyuv of Terumot, so therefore he cannot function as a shliach. A person who is toirem sheloi birshus, he was not appointed and he was not asking permission, so he cannot be what we call the tzaddik on expense of his friend. And there is also cheresh shoite vekoten, a person who is deaf in the sense he cannot speak and he cannot hear. Shoite, that he is mentally unstable, and koton is that he is a minor. So for that reason, since or they lack what we call the da'as, they lack the kavono, or they lack the chiyuv. So each and every one of those 5 cannot be a shliach to be mafresh Terumot on behalf of the meshaleach. However, in some of those disqualified people, under certain exception of conditions, their Terumot b'di'eved will be honored, will be viewed as Terumot. For example, if a person was toirem sheloi midas, he came and he actually took Terumot without a consent, but later on, when the owner of the field came, he displayed satisfaction of his act, or by him suggesting better fruit, and actually better fruit were found, because in case that he says, how come you didn't took better fruit and no better fruit were found, so it reveals that he was saying it in a very facetious, cynical way, and for that reason, obviously, he protests against the Terumot that was done without permission and consent. But in case that he displayed satisfaction, real satisfaction, so Terumot will be Terumot. Also by a minor, if the minor is above the age of 12, since regarding the nedorim, as we have learned, he is considered to be a muflo hasomuch leish, and his neder will be a neders. For that reason, his Terumot will be Terumot. If a person is half a deaf, which means though he cannot hear but he can speak, or the opposite, though he can speak but he cannot hear, or that he has only one chisoin, so though lechatchila he should not be toirem, but b'di'eved, after the fact, the Terumot will be Terumot. In the 5th chapter, the Rambam deals with the fact that in order to have a Terumot, it must be from the same type and from the same quality of fruit. For example, a person cannot take from wheat over barley, or for something that is dry over something that is fresh, or from something that is the chiyuv is the oiraise over something is the rabbonon. However, as far as if he took it, so in some cases the terumot not going to be terumot. In some cases, though that the terumot that he actually took will be terumot, but nevertheless the leftover still needs to be fixed with additional terumot. In the 6th chapter, the Rambam deals about the people who have the right to consume terumot outside the Kohen itself. So obviously outside his own family, he has a right to all his slaves, Knaani slaves and Knaani mates, to benefit from the terumot as well. As also his animals, they are also entitled to have the terumot. Even his wife that originally was a Israelis, as long as she stays married with him, she is entitled to go and benefit from the terumot that is being given to him. It is very important to note that marriage must take place. If only engagement took place, though biblically she is entitled, but nevertheless, rabbinically, since there is always a chashash, a suspicion, shemotachil leacheho or leachiiseo, she may go and feed the family friends. So as a restriction midirabonon, she is not allowed to eat when she is in a stage of engagement, though she is considered to be a ishes ish to all dinim, but nevertheless, as far as terumot, mitzad rabbonon, she is not permitted to eat. After the divorce or the death of her husband, as long as she has a zera, a child from that Kohen, so the existence of that child enables her to continue to benefit from terumot ma'asos as long as the child is still alive. At the moment that the child is dead, therefore her rights to consume from the terumot and ma'asos are ceasing to exist. Also, as long as the marriage is totally doiraise, only then she as a wife, she is entitled to terumot and ma'asos. Types of marriages that are only the rabbonon, for example, nisui, a marriage between a Kohen and a chereshes, since the entire nisuim is not really biblically, for that reason she is not entitled to terumot and ma'asos. Someone who is foreign, who is forbidden, who is not a Kohen, that he ate terumot, so if he ate it bezodoin, deliberately, he gets, since the oinesh is miso b'dei shomayim, but nevertheless he gets malchus. Since he gets the malchus, so therefore he doesn't need to pay for the terumot. If a person have done it be-shoigeg, therefore he will be exempt from malchus, but he will need to pay for the terumot plus a choimesh, which we have learned, additional 25% of the value of the terumot that he ate. A daughter of a Kohen, when she marries a Yisrael, so though she was entitled to terumot until that point of her marriage, at the point that she is getting married, no more terumots are allowed. Further than this, even after the marriage, same way as we have learned by Israelis that was married to a Kohen, as long as she have a child from a Kohen, she will be entitled to collect Terumot. Same goes the opposite if a Kohenes married a Israel. Obviously, her rights to Terumot cease to exist since she is married to Ish Zar. Further than this, even after the divorce, as long as she is in a state of divorce and she is still having a child from the Israel, she is not entitled to collect the Terumot. If the child dies, then, and she's still not married to anybody else, then she is entitled to eat Terumot, though she is not entitled to eat Chose v'Shoike and other matnois kehuno that generally she was entitled before the marriage. So again, a Kohenes that was married to a Israel after the divorce from a Israel, as long as she maintains a Zera, a child from the Israel, she is forbidden to go and eat Terumois and other matnois kehuno. At the moment that the child dies, she will be permitted only to eat Terumot, but not other matonois. The 7th chapter, which is the beginning for chapter of the 3rd lessons of today, deals about the prohibition of a Kohen in a state of Terumot to eat any type of Terumot, whether the Terumot is pure, whether the Terumot is tomei. However, while he is eating the Terumot in a state of pure is a violation of a negative commandments that is associated with Miso B'dei Shomayim. However, if the Terumot is in a state of Terumot, if the Terumot is Tmeo, he is not getting Malchus. Anything that is Terumas Chutz La'oretz, Terumot Mid'Rabbanon, the only prohibition is to those type of Terumois sheyoitzo aleihem migufon. There is two types of Terumois. There is Terumois that they are a result of any form of discharge that comes out from migufo, from the actual body, or a Terumot, although it can be more severe in other contexts. For example, Tumas Meis, which is associated with so many restrictions. Nevertheless, when it comes to Terumas Chutz La'oretz, so a person can be in a state of Tumas Meis like we are today, and he will be entitled to eat Terumot. On the other hand, Terumot sheyoitzo aleim migufoi, any type of internal Terumot will be forbidden. A person, a Kohen who is a Orel, he is uncircumcised, he is also forbidden to eat Terumot. What is interesting, that though an uncircumcised Kohen, he is forbidden to eat Terumot, yet his wife and his servants will be entitled to eat Terumot. There is also different effects as far as the rights to Terumot by people who were married to Isurei Chatznus. For example, if a person who is a Ptsua Dako, that his genitalial organs were damaged, where it is forbidden to him to marry any Lovei Bekohol. So for that reason, let's say if he is a Kohen and he married, and he's married with a wife, so though he is a Kohen, nevertheless, by him marrying to her, he turns her to a Halolo, and for that reason, she, or a Zoino even, and for that reason, she won't be able to eat the Terumot. In the 8th chapter, the Rambam deals with 3 types of gray areas. 5 types of gray areas that, as we say in English, they taking both sore ends of the stick. And I will explain. Typically, as we have learned before, that when a lady who is an Israelite who married to a Kohen, so it gives her the chance to change her status and be entitled to the type of Terumot and the benefits of it. Similarly, goes the other way. A Kohenes that marries to a Israel, so while she is married to him, she will lose her entitlement that until now she was accustomed to. Until now she is a Kohenes. By marrying to him, she is losing this entitlement. Then there is a period which is called the Erusin. Erusin is the engagement. Engagement, so it will have to both of them a restrictive area. For example, if a Bas Kohen was just engaged to a Israel, it's called had the Erusin, so she already lost her right to Terumot, because I will apply the severity that after all a Erusin is a new status, is, and therefore she is already married to a Israel, so she lost her ability to benefit from Terumot. At the same token will be also the opposite. If a Bas Israel was engaged to a Kohen, so I'm not saying, well, she has the right to Terumot right now because she's already engaged. She says, no. Gzeiro de Rabbanon, as we said before, I'm choishe shem otachi leacher o leach yiseo. Similar to it is also in a case when she is pregnant. So when a Bas Kohen, she is pregnant from a Yisrael, so just the fact that she is pregnant, the child doesn't allow her to give the right to go back to her father's Terumot, because I will view it as a total zera. And for that reason, she cannot eat Terumot. Had she not been pregnant and her husband divorced her or died, so she would be able, but her pregnancy keeps her ties with her husband, and therefore she's losing the right to go back to lechem oviho, to the bread of her father. Same thing, it goes by Israelis who lost her husband, a Kohen, but she's pregnant from him. So I'm not saying, so again, she doesn't have the right that she would have if it would be a full-fledged child. Had it been a full-fledged child, she would be entitled, thanks to the zera, to go and eat. But right now, after she doesn't have a zera any longer, so she's not, it's not considered to be a zera. Ubor, it's not considered to be a zera. So I see how I will apply two contradictory outcomes just in order to honor this type of gray area from either side, lechumre, to the severe side. And a similar thing is also a marriage to a cheresh, as we said before. I will view it as a marriage in order to prevent, in case a Kohenes was marrying a Cheresh, in order to prevent her from eating any more Terumot. And at the same time, I will prevent Israelis who married to a Cheresh Kohen to have her benefit from Terumot, because I will use the excuse that this type of gray area belongs more to the black color. So in other words, a gray area, if every opportunity I will be able to stretch it or to the white or to the black color based on the severe outcome. Whatever is going to yield the severe outcome, that's exactly what I will do. The final chapter, the chapter 9, discusses about the time until the woman is able to eat in Terumot, as long, if she's Israelis who are Nesuah Kohen, or even a Kohenes Nesuah, she would be able to eat the Terumot until the get comes to her hand. For that reason, will be a different between whether she appointed a shliach lekabolo or a shliach lehavoem. There is two types of appointment. A lady can appoint a emissary to get the get of her behalf. There is one type of appointment of a shliach that at the moment that he gets the get from the Baal, she is already divorced, and for that reason, from the moment that theoretically he would have reached this destination, the shliach, she is no more entitled to Terumot. Or there is another type of shlichus which is called shlichus lehavoed, that the gerushin will take effect only at the time that the get gets to her hand. On this, if the case that the appointment of the shlichus was of the second type, so then until the point it get to her hand, only then only then she will be able to entitled to eat or to cease to eat the Terumot and Maisos. Then towards the end, the Rambam discusses scenarios where again I will apply both severities. In a case of a city that is sieged by the enemies, or a boat that is lost in the water, or someone who is about to get judged for a capital punishment. So the issue whether I would assume the husband life or death. So whatever going to lead to a restriction, that the assumption will be. It's called noisnim olov in those scenarios, chumrei chaim vechumrei meisim. So for that reason, if she was a bas Yisrael who is married to a Kohen, I will assume that the Kohen is dead, and for that reason she is not entitled to eat any longer the Terumot. If it was the opposite, a bas Kohen that nesuo leIsrael, I would assume that her husband is still alive. That way she must still maintain the restriction of prohibition of Terumot and Maisos due to her marriage status. When it comes to Eved, we have learned before that the Eved is entitled to eat Terumot and Maisos. So obviously when he gets the get shihur, the certificates of freedom, then he is entitled, he's losing his entitlement to eat any more Terumot. However, rabbinically, even if a person he is already liberated, but he is missing the certificate, so midirabanan he is also losing his entitlement for Terumot. If a Jew, a soil, have hired a animal that belongs to a Kohen, he rented. So since the behemoth belongs to the Kohen, though it is rented by him, he is still allowed to feed the behemoth with the food of Terumot. If it is the opposite, a Kohen rented an animal from a soil, though he is renting it, but nevertheless, since the real owner is a soil, therefore Terumot will be forbidden to be fed to this particular animal. The final halacha deals with a very interesting ruling. There is a ruling that midoiraise, biblically, in order to have a transaction take effect, all what is sufficient is the payment of money. However, later on, rabbinically, they have instituted the act of meshicho. So the idea is, since originally, biblically, was sufficient with mois, for that reason, if a Kohen, for example, sold his cow to a soil and the actual meshicha was not done, only kinyan kesef, so I will take the stricter approach. I would say, though the meshicha was not done, but nevertheless, if the kesef was given and midoiraise kesef is koine, for that reason it belongs to a soil, and therefore the poor is not allowed to eat any longer Terumot. What happened if it was the opposite? If the Yisrael have sold the poor to the Kohen, and the Kohen paid kesef, so then I will apply the chumre, and I would say the poor, since the meshicha was not done yet, the poor is not allowed to eat from the Terumot, since meshicha, which is the final takone, was not performed yet. So I see a general trend over here that is clearly that I will always, due to the severity of Terumot and the oinesh of misobedei shomayim and choimesh and that malchus that is associated with it. So in many type of gray areas, whether the gray area comes from a legal perspective or from a physical occurrence or halachic dilemma, I will always take the stricter approach. Thank you very much, and a good gebencht yom.